Generally Famous is proudly brought to you by Trade Depot. Generally famous for low prices, always. Call into one of the stores or visit online, tradedepot.co.nz. Hello and welcome to Generally Famous. I'm Simon Bridges, and each week I'll be talking to generally famous but always interesting guests about life, love and what makes them tick. This week we have TV star, podcaster, feminist, I think I can say that about you, partner, mum, Christian daughter, Petra Bagust. It's great to have you on Generally Famous.
Sweet as. Thanks for the intro.
Hey, you are very well. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here with you. Do you know that a Google search of you and I, it's Simon Bridges, Petra Bagust. I didn't try, I must admit, Petra Bagust, Simon Bridges. It's possible that brings different results. Brings as its top result, you and I calling Paula Bennett, one of my bezies, Paula Benefit.
The human mind is amazing, isn't it?
Isn't the internet marvellous?
Yes, it's just the ability for the subconscious to work where you've heard something, you're like, I must never do that. I must never mix this with that. And then we do it at parties.
I think that's right.
In glasses.
In
words, on tongues.
Yeah. Do you think we can derive any deeper meaning from us both doing that or not really?
No, not really.
Have you ever been on a benefit?
I haven't been on
There's
a benefit.
no shame in that.
No shame.
No.
I honestly was literally thinking.
But you see what I did there? See, I went from sort of flippant into something quite serious.
You did.
And as fellow broadcasters, I just felt like I'd explain
Jump on
that.
In there, Simon.
I'd explain
the pool
that.
is wide and broad, and you are welcome.
Well, but I'm not part of the MSM, am I? I mean, this is podcasts.
MSM. Media Services mangled up.
Main Street.
Oh, mainstream
Main
media.
Street, not Main Street, mainstream media.
No, I don't think podcasts count as mainstream. Mind you, doing it with stuff, so you're getting close.
Yeah, no, I suppose that's true. And anyway, let's I've done interviews with you, so the boot's on the other foot here.
It totally is, because in my brief period on Breakfast for 2 years, along with Jacinda Ardern, were a young gun, I believe.
Yes.
We called you every second week.
Yes.
The two of you would come into the studio and we'd interview you.
Yeah.
And then you both ended up as leaders of your parties. And I thought, is there any correlation between media experience and practice and being able to front profile and being able to front a party? And so much of that is what you say quickly.
But maybe we were amazing, and that's why we got the gig. I mean, I don't...
Or was it all of it? Is it all of it?
I'm not saying that. Maybe it's all of that. It's actually true in Australia as well. I feel like there was I could be basically making this up, but I feel like there was a Julia Gillard, Tony Abbott primetime TV breakfast thing every week or so, and they both became prime ministers. Now, I never became prime minister, I'm the unsuccessful one. Yeah.
There was an actual frog in my throat then.
That's okay. They can edit it out, don't worry.
I think you're right. I think obviously both of you showed great talent. And then I think that being on telly every week or every second week was useful.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And you were on, you were a TV star young.
22.
And you did that to sort of, early 40s?
Yeah, I did. And about, I think I was on Breakfast when I was 40, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 18 solid years, I think, on telly every year. Yeah, quite a long time.
Veteran at like 40.
That's pretty cool, hey? I hadn't thought of it like that.
It is, and the thing about, I remember Paul Henry saying this, but the thing about Breakfast TV, and as you say, I had 2 or 3 big breaks. One of them was beating Winston. You know you're the big time when you can give them one name and everyone knows who you're talking about. Going on Breakfast TV, I think John Key got me the gig. I think they asked him and he said, he'll be good. And so, it was me and Jacinda on Breakfast TV every week. But the thing about Paul Henry, I think, said the thing about Breakfast TV then, and when you were still on it, is it's not like today when there's TikTok and Instagram and podcasts and every other thing and a bunch of people aren't watching. Everyone was watching it. Mm-hmm. Like, I think everyone was watching it. It was the dying days, if you like. Sorry to TVNZ and TV3 and all that, but in a way, it was of that massive power.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that
the programmers chose what we watched?
And did you? That's right. They chose.
Yeah, it was curated and it wasn't on demand. Yeah, it was different. We had DVDs. That was our choice, wasn't it? We had some DVDs that if we wanted to make our own decision, or we could go to the cinema. But
And did you enjoy it?
Breakfast? No, not really, not generally. But that's another story. Making television?
Yeah.
I loved it. The best thing about breakfast TV was after the earthquakes in Christchurch, and we were literally useful. We were literally connecting people with information that they needed or wanted, and we were telling a story that was impacting the whole of the nation,
yes.
the Motu as it's now known, and there was something dynamically, resonantly good about that, about telling the stories that other Kiwis didn't have access to, connecting people to information and ideas or actions that they could take. And that was profound. On another level, it was just an incredible time to be broadcasting. I think Gaddafi got assassinated. There were riots in London. News was just happening all over the world. There was an election, and it was Olympics, and it was everything. So that was very exciting to be in this kind of fulcrum of activity. But the hours and the
Not so much.
atmosphere and the
Because what were you
so
getting
much
up to do breakfast TV?
I was getting up at 4, but look, lots of people do it, right? But I was a young mum, I had young children. By the time I finished breakfast, they didn't jump on your bed in the morning. You know how they run in and they jump on your bed, Mum, Dad, we're awake. That was over. But yeah, no, it wasn't my home either. Like I didn't come from TVNZ and I didn't come via a journalism school, so I wasn't really truly one of the team, I don't think. Yeah.
You're telling me before we got on, fine arts is your original thing. Have I got that?
Yeah,
right?
That's what I studied at university.
And would you say you have an artistic disposition? Is that your, I feel like there's a, rather than a, you're not, I mean, complete, I'm mashing my questions here, but are you still a news junkie?
I was never a news junkie.
Right.
And I'm still not a news junkie.
Yep.
I'm a people junkie.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And in some ways, do you think that made you, I don't want to say better, but in a way that's good, right? Because for breakfast TV, look, most people aren't. They're having their cornflakes, they want to know what's going on and be informed, but also entertained, and they don't want some sort of professorial type or something who's kind of giving them a lecture on what's going on.
I think just as there's a diversity in each family in terms of strengths, you want that on a breakfast crew as well. So you want your news junkie there, definitely. And then you want, it's an arranged marriage. That's how they often talk about it. Male-female partnership that fronts, and you've got a newsreader and you've got the weather person who's usually your kid. There are stereotypes that exist in that framework.
Yeah.
I think let's bust them up, and possibly TVNZ's doing a good job of that. Vibe-wise, TV3's got a good thing going. They create warm. People wake up and they want their news, but they want some aroha. They want some love and some encouragement. That was my hope in being part of Breakfast TV, was to say, hey, New Zealand, here's another day. We've got to do it. Let's do it together. Let's do it. Let's do it as well as we can, because life is crunchy. I don't know that I succeeded in that, but that was my intent.
That's a good intent. Who would you say, sorry, it's a bit twee question, but I'm genuinely interested. Who would you say was the best in front of the camera talent or broadcaster or guy or girl that you worked with?
Oh, gosh.
Or even not worked with, actually. But, I mean, if you look back on those years, I mean, is it,
To be honest, I think that there's magic inside of chemistry. So when you've got so for example, Paul Henry with Kay Gregory wasn't joyous as a broadcast experience, but Paul Henry with Pippa Wetzel was. So you've got doesn't come down to the individual. I think it comes down to the interconnection and the relationship and the chemistry. So for me, Ice TV was special. It was magical. Johnny Bridges came from comedy. Nathan Rarere came from radio. I came from university. And so, regional music TV. So I came from regional music TV. That was my part-time job during uni. And there was a chemistry and a joy, not just in the three of us, but in the whole kaupapa, in the whole cohort of
Somehow
people who made
magic
it. Magic came. And you get magic sometimes, but it's foreground and background magic together.
I think it does come down to the individuals, though, doesn't it? I mean, for some reason, Gregory and Henry didn't work, but Pippa came along and she got him or something, right? And she was prepared to...
I'm pushing back because you could say Paul Henry wasn't a good broadcaster because him and Kay didn't work together. Mm-hmm. Or Kay wasn't a good broadcaster, but they each have skills in their own right, but sometimes something extra happens. Pippa did allow Paul to shine, and I heard that he only ever got into hot water when she wasn't on the couch beside him. Right. So all his big kind of media furores were when somebody else was filling in, right? So there must have been some sort of really good magic.
She brought out, I mean, it's a bit...
She brought out the best in him.
And I don't mean this in any... sort of silly way, but I know that when Natalie's in the audience, my wife, I do better.
Yeah.
I don't make a dickhead of myself when Natalie's in the audience, so there's so if it was a big conference or it was something that really I want her there somehow. That gives me a confidence. I don't try too hard. I don't do anything that's kind of OTT.
So she's your safe person who calls the best of you and also holds you to some sort of healthy boundary.
I think that's right. You can just kind of see she's like, no, Simon. Yeah. That's not the...
So Pippa did that.
That is not mature.
Yeah. So Pippa did that for Paul, but it didn't make Paul better than Kay or better than Pippa or Pippa. Why do we have to... I mean, people rank people all the time, but I think...
It's what we do.
Yeah, we can choose not to do it. We can practice new habits.
We are humans.
We are humans, and I kind of love that about us. Doesn't mean we can't learn new tricks.
No, and speaking of that, I mean, if I think about you, and I hope you don't come
Go for
across
gold.
here and tell me off something. I don't. I mean it well, and I think you've said it on your podcast, which we'll come to. Then it was over. And you, as you say, were like 40, and you not that you were, because you've reinvented, and it's the thing we all do these days, and you've done all these things, but at a level, and I know the feeling, right? I was leader, I was in the TV every night, and then you're in quotes, and this is the little bit, but I think you said it has been, right? And it's and you're only 40.
No, I didn't say that. I said former broadcaster.
Right.
What was your quotes?
Oh, well, I probably am a has-been.
So this is like, who decides who we are, Simon? Who gets to decide for every individual who they are when the lights are off? So people say, what's such and such doing? I haven't seen them for ages. And I'm like, the answer is they're living. They're doing that. If you have a life that's in the public and then your life is no longer in the public, you're still living. It's just that not everybody is seeing what you're doing.
But does it matter who decides?
Yes, it does.
What I mean is, should we care... Do I really? So I'll give you an example. Just it's probably a lame, superficial example, but I'll give it. It's funny enough, I was thinking about it. I'm walking along the road this morning. A guy asked me for a selfie, right? And at one level that's good. Former someone has been. He still wants it, and he's a young guy. Now the reality of that is, and I've had this happen, as you may appreciate many a time. Some people put those up on social media and slag me off and say, "Look at this tool I'm sort of sitting next to." Look, most don't. That's the way. But kind of, I'm in the situation where I'm like, who gives a shit, right? It's easier to take the selfie. He or she's going to do whatever they want with it. Life goes on. So I suppose I'm saying I make a choice, and I don't always do this perfectly. Sometimes things do get to me, right? They do.
Of course they do.
And I'm like, no, other people don't get to decide my self-worth.
So that's a good position to be in. It sounds like emancipation to me. You also don't have to prove anything particularly. Like, you aren't representing now an entire cohort and a way of being and a lifestyle in the same way that you were as the leader of the National Party. So you have freedom to work out who you are. Like, I think inside of great loss, which we all go through, there is profound learning and profound discovery potential. Like, I'm not saying anything new. I'm just saying, when we come home to who we are when no one's looking, that's really who we are. And then people are misunderstood all the time. You were misunderstood, I'm sure, as the leader of the National Party. But when you're misunderstood as an individual, or when you're critiqued, or you don't have to not feel it. But you can decide, you can know who you are, and then what that other stuff that bounces off the outside of you it has a different impact. Like reading that I, former broadcaster, I was like, oh, wow, okay. Some other cohort have decided that I am no longer a broadcaster.
Yes, right.
That's interesting.
Right.
So that just begs the question for me. So am I a broadcaster or not? And even the idea of reinvention, like what is that? Or is it that over the last 10 years I have carried on living and learning and doing things,
Sure.
and then I have dipped my head above the parapet again now in a forum of public communication like podcasts, and people are like, oh, she's reinvented herself as a podcaster. Or is it that all of that stuff is just, that this is just a percolation or a different expression of who I always was?
I suppose reinvention level doesn't matter. It's nice.
but
It's not pejorative, but
it's a wonderful marketing
it's what
tool.
other people
Yeah.
say about
100.
you, not
Yeah.
what you say
Yeah.
about. But I suppose what I am interested in, and I won't characterise it. You do this as you were on TV.
Yes.
Every morning.
Yes.
Everyone in New Zealand saw you. Because at that time TV3 had about 8 viewers, and that's just the way it. And then you weren't. How did that go for you? I mean, did it take 2 years for you to kind of decide that you didn't care, or did you not care from the day one, or what was that? And we've said the quote reinvention word, but I mean, was there? What was the learning that you went through?
How long have you got, Simon?
Not too long, because I want to talk to you about your pod and life and love and children
Yeah. I loved my last 3 months on breakfast because I knew I was going to be free at the end of it.
Yep.
So for me, I was a round peg in a square hole, or a square peg in a round hole, whichever way the saying goes. It wasn't a comfortable fit, and that was for a multitude of reasons. When I knew that I could be me again, my last 3 months of breakfast were good, because I started to pull off the shackles of what TVNZ really wanted me to be, which wasn't working. Not for them, not for me. And so I enjoyed that last 3 months.
Yep.
And I left and knew I needed essentially a sabbatical. So I said to my husband, I'm taking 6 months off. And that's what I did. I literally didn't work for 6 months. I breathed, and I kind of just restored my soul, because there had been something profoundly, I don't know if diminishing or reducing or sucking, something about my experience of TVNZ's breakfast show that had withdrawn from the bank account of my life in a way that hadn't resourced me. It was the highest I'd ever been paid, the most often I'd ever been on telly, the most profile I'd had, possibly the most free stuff, but I was the poorest I've ever been. That's how I describe it.
Right.
I was psychologically and emotionally and physically poor, as opposed to being rich. So it was probably that I was in the wrong place.
Did you like the free stuff?
I've always liked the free stuff, Simon Bridges. I'm a New
We
Zealander.
all like the free
free
stuff.
The free stuff usually
When am I
comes with
gonna
a
get some
caveat.
free stuff?
Simon, let it go. How many lunches have you had?
Oh, that's hurtful.
Come on.
What are you? Are you
I
making
am
assumptions based on
No
the look
assumptions.
of me?
No
What are you
assumptions.
trying to say?
I'm saying that I suspect and have heard that when people go into politics, they put on weight due to the amount of lunches they go
That's
to.
very hurtful. Would you change anything? I know, or I'm going to move on now, but would you change anything,
No.
do anything differently about you? No?
No, because...
No, I don't think I would either.
Because I love the learning. I love, like at the end of the 6 months off, I took another 6 months off. Now, what a privilege. I got to be a mum. I stayed in
How
my
old were your
house
kids
in,
at that time?
2012. Do the maths quickly, like 5, 7, 9,
Amazing.
6, 8, 10. They were that sort of era. And then I went on a learning journey. I literally carried on speaking to people in public because I love people. I love us. We're so marvellously munted and we're magical and crazy. And I'm fascinated. And then I learned a bit of Te Reo Māori for 2 years, and I've done chaplaincy studies, and I worked as an ambassador and did public speaking, and I reconnected with who I was probably.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert,
I'm
do you
an
think?
I'm an extrovert.
Is that right?
And in my mature years, I've come around to being able to be on my own. I never was able to be on my own as a young person. And now I love.
I mean, I'm an introvert.
I hear you.
I like people, but
not specifically, not actual individuals, just people as a general rule.
And I like individuals, and I like being in a group, and I'm not shy. But at the end of talking to you for however long it is, I want
a cup of tea and a lie down.
Yeah, no,
100%.
exactly.
So extroverts are socially very capable, right? They just don't recharge in company.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
I think that's right. Grey areas.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
I've heard of it. I've heard it's good.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. And I suppose for those who haven't, it's about, as the name suggests, getting older. I would say, confidence, esteem, self-care, particularly for women, sex therapy, menopause, we come to that, the big M. Why that podcast? What was it about that?
It was a conversation in an office. Have you ever wanted to do a podcast? A guy said, like my colleague Josh, who's one of the producers, and I've said, absolutely have, but I'm realistic enough to know I couldn't do it on my own. Yes. And he was like, well, what would you want to do it about? And I said, well, everything I'm interested in, everything I'm passionate about and curious about.
How do we, given your topic, age well?
I think we age intentionally. We make decisions for ourselves and with ourselves. So we choose to age. Like, Simon, it's happening. We all age, right?
Yeah.
So are you aging blindly, obliviously? Are you railing against it? Are you pretending, ignoring, distracting, diverting, avoiding? Or are you going to hop into that driver's seat of your own beautiful life and go, hey, things are changing. How do I set myself up for success for the next season? How do I get out of this one wild and beautiful life what I'm meant to get? How do I give inside of this one wild and beautiful life what I want to give? It's for me, it's about intentionality, following a thread of curiosity. I'm getting older. How do I want to age? If I decide to age by pretending I'm not aging, kapai, do that. By looking as young as I can, do that. But if I decide to age by focusing on maybe my own strength as a woman, we lose muscle faster than men. Am I going to moan and whinge about that? No, I'm going to do some strength work. I'm going to increase my strength, increase my flexibility. I'm going to see what can I still give? What am I interested in? What am I purposeful about? What can I embrace? And I might decide to embrace aging. And I just think that's really a life-giving move. So it's a power move.
Yeah, the thoughtfulness or the intentionality allows for a grace, and it also leads to action, potentially.
I agree.
Yeah. No, yeah. I get
so
that.
If we get, and what we're afraid of, I call them black goals. What we're afraid of, we still move towards. Mm. So if my greatest fear is getting old, or my greatest fear is being alone or being rejected, or my greatest fear is failure, I'm going to move towards it because my subconscious is activated on it. Whereas if I turn my attention towards what I want and I make it a white goal or a light goal, I'm actually going to walk towards that. We what's the jargon now? Manifest. But we don't even have to be woo-woo. We can be woo-woo if we want to be. What we think about and spend time on and pay attention to, we create.
How old do you think I look?
You, my friend, Black Don't Crack, look like a young man. 35. 35, Simon.
That's good. Yeah, no, I like you. I know, and I won't characterise what I.
How old do I look, Simon?
No, I'm not.
How old do I look?
Well, I know you're 50.
Yeah, how old do I look? 50, hopefully.
I think you do look 50.
Thank you.
Sort of there. I don't know, because I know that, so it's what I think of you.
And at the same time, if you and I think about it for a second, we don't really know what 50 looks like, do we?
No, and of course it can look different.
Yeah,
on different people.
Yes, and for women,
bleedingly obvious.
And for women, it's what does 50 even look like? It looks like.
But I suppose there are 50-year-old men and women who are trying to look 28, and as you sort of say, we're not kind of here to make judgments about that. That's okay at a level. Did you have a big bash for your 50th?
I did have the best birthday ever.
Did you have a hangover in the next morning?
No, of course I didn't, Simon. I just don't need alcohol to dance on tables.
Right.
I didn't dance on a table. I did a huge, to give you horapaki context, I did a big bash at the top of a hotel for all my friends and whānau for my 30th. I did a big bash for my 40th. It was the end of the breakfast. It was a party at home and heaps of people in catering. I really think celebrating is a worthwhile engagement.
Yeah.
For my 50th, I knew I didn't want to party because it's an existential crisis for me to try and to connect with all these people I love and like in one night, and I know it's impossible.
Sorry, how many?
No, just however many people you have at a party.
Yeah, how many came to yours?
Well, I did mine on Great Barrier Island, and I
Right.
invited 50 people,
Right.
and 25 of them could come because
Amazing.
it's a bit of a pain in the ass to get
Yeah,
there.
that's great.
And it was so good because
Well,
it was
that
over a
means
period of days. It wasn't even a party. It was a
Yes.
sit-down dinner. It was a casual barbecue the night before with locals. It was a weekend filled with aroha.
And I think at
time.
that number, that means that people you genuinely
Yeah.
and generally like
Yeah.
and love,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
There were people I genuinely like and love who couldn't be there.
Yeah.
Members of my family and close friends. But you know what? One of them is like coming to visit us at Christmas, and they're an introvert, and it will be better. It was like, it was so good. It was just such I'm a quality time person, so when people spend time with me, I feel loved, and that's what the birthday weekend was. People gave their weekend up and came and hung out with us. It was awesome.
Leaving Parliament's been great, but it's also been a hassle. For starters, moving cities and all that goes with that. But one thing that hasn't been a hassle has been getting new appliances. All I needed to do was talk to the team at Trade Depot. What I also love is that Trade Depot is 100% Kiwi owned and lives and breathes our DIY mindset. And the range of stock, over 4,500 top quality home improvement products, kitchens, bathrooms, laundry, heat pumps, tools, hardware, you name it, they've got it sorted. And best of all, particularly in times like this, are the low prices always. They've got stores in Auckland, Christchurch, and a new superstore in Hamilton, and also comprehensive online product ranges which you can check out at tradedepot.co.nz so that you, like me, can get into that renovation spirit. Right, I'm back to it. Do you think that men and women are treated differently? It's different in relation to going grey, and I know you've talked about this. I mean, my sense would be, let me give you the answer to my own question before you, and you can say no, da-da-da-da, but I suspect you'll sort of go along with it. My suspicion is, look, actually, no, but we are treated differently. I've got some salt and pepper. You know, I'm thinking of a bad 90s sort of band then when I say that. But you know, going grey for a man is silver fox, the association, so on. And traditionally, at least, that's been different. And of course, we know that, you know, for the most part, or my sense would be, a woman will die on that basis, dye their hair and so on. I mean, what's your...
Yes, that was our script.
Yeah.
It was an emancipation move to be able to dye hair. You could look younger and relevant, and you weren't written off as old or elderly or past it. These days there is a grey hair revolution, a Silver Sisters revolution, and I'm not on the bleeding edge of that. I'm probably just past the cutting edge of that in terms of, I know for me, I thought the day I go grey, that means I'm no longer able to be on telly, even though I wasn't on telly anyway. But I subconsciously knew that when I look at my television screen, there aren't grey-haired people on it. That's changing. It's all changing.
Or is it grey-haired woman?
Grey-haired woman. It is grey-haired woman, yeah, totally.
I mean, I don't know. I'm trying
whole...
to think it was sandy-haired, but Peter Williams. I mean, he was in his 60s, I think, or certainly late 50s, still reading the news.
Yeah, Simon Dellow's grey. Mike McRoberts is grey.
So self-evidently, there's a different treatment there.
But it's through the whole... It doesn't happen. It doesn't start when people go grey. That kind of narrative for women that's narrow starts way back when. You have to usually have to have a certain physique, have to have a certain colour hair, like one of two colours. Sam Hayes is the exception with the third colour. Have a certain... No curls. There's no curly-headed newsreaders. Indira Stewart is a phenomenon. A, she's Pacifica, and B, she's got curly long hair. You don't see it. So it's just this. It is, as women in our society, as Pākehā European women, there is a way of looking and a way of ageing and a way of being that's quite narrow. And I just think we're starting to bust out of that. It's a good thing. It's a good move. But I'm not het up about it or angry. I'm just like, let's go. Let's hop into the driving seat of our own stories.
And of course there are, I don't know if the right word is or words are role models, but there are, very famous role models in terms of, I'm thinking Judi Dench, I'm thinking actually Mae Musk, is it?
Oh, yeah.
Iris, what's her name, has just turned 100. I don't know if you follow her on
yes.
Instagram. Amazing.
I think she got famous at 85.
Yeah, and I'm suspecting she was grey then too, right?
Yeah.
So there are those sort of role models. I mean, one thing is sexism. I mean, another thing is ageism.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we are a very ageist society.
Western Europeans have a very ageist attitude towards ourselves. The crazy thing, the thing I do not get about this is that we are all going there. Like if you're ableist or racist, you're not going to change your ethnicity and you're not going to potentially become unable-bodied. But everybody who is lucky enough gets older.
Yes.
So how we treat our elders now is how we are asking to be treated. And we are all getting there. So the denial piece isn't working. Like kaumatua and so many cultures like Māori, like Pasifika, like Asian cultures, African cultures, there is a different attitude towards
I think that's
others.
right. See, I don't like, as a generalisation, this down on Western society, right? Oh, look, they were bad and look, these other cultures are great. But I agree with you on this. I think it's true. And I think one of the things, and I want to talk to you about this because I know, or I think I know, your circumstance, a lot of it perhaps derives from the fact, and my wife Natalie's parents live with her sister and husband and children, right? And of course, as a gross generalisation, that is much more so and true for Māori and Pacifica. And I think actually Asian, as you say, Asian
Korean,
cultures. That's not true as a generalisation in the West. We sort of say it's time for a rest home, love, and there you go. Your parents live with you. Your husband must really love you.
He does. Such a good man.
I don't know if I'm man enough for that.
He's such a good man. So kind.
Does he like it?
I don't think it's about like. It just feels really good. It just feels really right. It doesn't feel convenient and easy all the time.
Yeah.
But it feels really, really easy sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if something goes wrong, you are there. There's no hopping in the. I've hopped in the car, driven across the city and beaten the ambulance to my parents' house before. That was not fun. If something goes wrong, I'm there. And if something goes right, I'm there.
And I don't want to get you in trouble with them, but are they a young, old,
they're both.
Or an old?
They're a combo.
Right.
Yeah. Dad's got health issues, and my mum is a young, wise person. Hey, this down on Western society, can we just tap into that for a second?
Yeah.
When we raise up or notice something excellent in another culture, it doesn't mean we're degrading or rejecting our own culture. So for me, binary thinking is that when I notice you are good, I have to make somebody else bad to equal the scales. Can we say that the Western culture that we live in, with the law and the justice and the peace and the democracy, there's so many good things about it, right? There's so many good things. But we're not good at everything, and we don't have the answer for everything. So when we can draw on the wisdom, recognise the goodness in other cultures, learn, adopt a position of curiosity and humility, we can be better.
I don't disagree with the thing you've said, but isn't it also true that as a generalisation, it's fashionable to not say anything good about Western values in society, and to constantly say that in other cultures this is good or better and so on. And I suppose the danger with that, and I'm thinking aloud here, is that what that does is it undermines a bunch of, as you say, because no culture is good or bad, but good tenets and things that exist and are part of the foundations of our society.
I think when you're addressing a balance of power, that happens, that we swing out. I think it is fashionable to be down on Western European culture, and I think that maybe we need that. Maybe we need to swing too far out to come back to a centre. I think getting stuck anywhere is a problem, but the pendulum swing against sexism or against ageism or against ableism or against racism, that sometimes swings a wee way out beyond people's comfort levels. But why do we always have to be comfortable? Let's let go of that. Let's absorb some being misunderstood and critiqued. Let's actually take an honest look at ourselves and acknowledge where our culture has been overbearing and unhelpful and harmful, and come back to a place of more equity and more equilibrium and more understanding and compassion. So I think it's probably just a necessary edge out. Do I think that our whole society is going to collapse because we're critiquing it and looking at it a bit? And I don't, yeah.
No, you put that well from your perspective.
Yeah.
You, of course, are you fluent in Te Reo?
Not at all.
Where would you put it on I don't know, 1 to 10? Are you a 4 or a 6?
2.
Right.
I'd say 2. I add kupu, add words as much as I can, try and keep learning new words. I did 2 years of study. Like anybody who's studied a language for 2 years knows that they're not fluent. My commitment to continue to learn is 9. My appreciation for what I'm learning is 10. And my curiosity is high, I guess.
Are you still actively learning now?
So, I learned to karakia last year,
right.
And I listened to podcasts like Taringa and
Why is it important to you as a Pakeha woman to do that?
Well, selfishly, it's a great addition to my life. It expands my worldview and it allows me to be a more whole human. And because I want to belong, and I do belong to this whenua, because I am a New Zealander who lives here, when I can find my own identity, then I can allow the identity of everybody else to exist well. So in coming home to being tangata te tiriti, a person of the treaty, rather than feeling displaced, defensive, insecure, I come home to the fact that I was invited to belong here. That there's a document that allows and legitimizes my involvement, however it's rolled out, with the humanity and the difficulty of it rolling out. The original intent was collaboration. Like when we didn't overpower them with our numbers, the cultures there was a symbiosis and a trading and a kind of a give and take. Like the first school in New Zealand was a Māori school. And it was a tribe that went, we want a school. We want to teach our children. The first school here wasn't a school for Pākehā. It was a school for Māori. Like, Māori were open to new ideas and new technology. And there was a giving and receive. There was a reciprocity to the relationship. And so because I'm here and because of who I'm descended from, I want to belong. I want to be in quality, reconciled relationship with tangata whenua. As tangata tiriti. I don't want to pretend I'm them. I don't want to have to negate them to be me. I want us to be collaboratively able to coexist and more.
There's so much we could talk about and unpack there, and I really appreciate what you've said. I do,
and
though.
We're cutting it.
Well, I do want to talk to you about something else that's really important, menopause.
Yeah.
And as an aside, isn't it fascinating? It's got the word men in it.
No.
It's all about us, even menopause. I mean, there's so much where in so many places we go on this, but I know, again, your podcast, you've unpacked and talked about a lot. I think it's fantastic. At one level, actually, having said it's got the word men in it, it does affect us all.
It does, yeah.
It is something that's relevant to not simply women, but men and women.
Yep.
I asked my wife, Natalie, this morning, because I wanted to ask you about it, and I listened, been affected by what you were saying about it on your podcast, what she thought of it. She said, well, honestly, it's horrific. And we have a family member, and I have permission to say this, I'm not saying this sort of out of turn or anything, who's in her 60s. She's been going through it for years. It is entirely, well, not entirely, but it's fundamentally debilitated her life.
Wow. And,
that's sort of in all aspects of that. And yet, it seems to me it's changing. This person isn't in New Zealand, and she's in the UK, and where she is, look, I think, there's a sense that there are campaigns about this, actually, to get employers to recognise what a big deal it is for employees and so on. Is it still a taboo in New Zealand? Is it still a private thing that we need to grow up on? What's your sense?
Happily, I'm walking past conversations where I hear people say the word menopause, like there's cafes, and I hear women talking about it with each other. So I think we're de-tabooifying it, definitely. And I think our attitude towards it makes difference to how we approach it. So it is a natural transition. It's not that a woman is and becomes deficient and broken and sick. It's that we go through this significant life change that has physiological as well as psychological, emotional, mental impacts, right? And for 1 in 4 women, it is debilitating. And for 2 in 4, it's mildly problematic. And for 1 in 4, it's, oh, wow, I took a cardi off once. So if we are able to approach whatever experience we have over the 5 to 12 years that menopause can be, some people say it's 7, some people say it's 5, some people say it's 10, but it can be a long period of time for people. If we're able to approach it with curiosity again and intrigue and what can I do, and if I approach it with the attitude that I can always feel better, like I can take an action on my own behalf to feel better. When we're not in a spiral of what's wrong with me, am I dying, do I have cancer, am I going mental, have I got a tumour, have I got dementia, then we can actually stand on the solid ground of, I'm okay. I need more support. I need to take something. I need to do something for myself. But there are women, and there have been women who have been sent to, put on drugs and locked up for the rest of their lives because they had terrible menopausal symptoms. Like women who were just written off for the rest of their lives. So, it is pretty bad for some people. And yet, when we know it, knowledge is power.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, I can think of an example where constantly looking at houses. One day we might buy one, and so that is that. But, the real estate agents, I think we'd been walking up some stairs and she said, I'm going through menopause, and,
Hot
she
flush.
was talking about it. And, I don't think that would have happened a decade ago.
Wouldn't have.
And I thought that at the time, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What do you think men should know about it and do about it? Look, if anything, is it basically what you've already said? Be curious, have an empathy for it, or is there?
Yeah. Can I start with what men could do about it? Is be kind to themselves. I literally had an intersection with my husband where he was like, "Where's the dog bowl?" and he couldn't find it. And I'm like, "It's at the front door. Like you used it, yesterday." And then he did another thing where he forgot something, and I was like, is he dying? Has he got a tumour? Has he got dementia? And I'm like, this is what it's like for men when women have this hormonal storm going on inside of them, which is essentially a second puberty, menopause, a reverse puberty. We're not antsy about puberty. We're like, whoa, these days, poor kids.
You talk about it as going back to childhood or something. Run us through that. I mean, that's fascinating.
In Asian cultures, it's called the second spring. So you go back to a calm hormonal state. You think of, as a woman, you're cycling through hormones, progesterone and estrogen all the time. Post-menopause, you go back to quite a calm hormonal state, and women report being the happiest they've ever been in their 70s. And returning to levels of contentment and happiness and freedom that they experienced in their childhood, if their childhood was safe and secure. So for men, first of all, if you have fears, concerns and doubts about your wife, I empathise. And secondly, it is worth being curious about it. It's worth listening to a podcast. I know people who say, I've got my husband to listen to Menopause 101, or unpacking it or asking questions, not trying to solve it, but supporting your partner in life to seek the best for themselves, just as they hopefully help you. Because there's lots of talk about a male menopause. How many people have a midlife crisis, buy a motorbike, get a new wife, get a new job, throw everything out the window. So we go through transitions. It's just there is a very real physicality to our transition.
And I ask this in good faith and with reasonably reasonably little knowledge about it, but I know for the family member I mentioned, it's a question for them. HRT, hormone replacement therapy.
There's a new name. What's it called? Menopausal hormone therapy. Menopause hormone therapy. Because
good thing, bad thing.
Well, HRT
more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's more complicated than that. It's every person working out what they need to feel better and to function well. And for some, menopause hormone treatment or menopause hormone therapy is excellent, and it is much safer. So have good quality discussions. Ask questions. If it's not working for you, go to somebody else. Ask more questions. Read. There are books available. There are articles. There's online information. There's no such thing as no. It's not good or bad. It's not binary. Could be menopause hormone therapy for a while. It could be at this point. It could be maybe not for you. It could be supplements. It could be exercise. It could be ditch the booze. It could be change your sleep patterns. It could be change your job. It could be go to counselling. It could be any number of things. There might be something else going on. It could be that you need more than menopausal hormone therapy. You need more support than that. You might need other medical intervention.
I think one conclusion on all of these issues with ageing, whether it's grey hair, menopause, that I agree with you wholeheartedly on your second half. So I'm 45.
Yeah.
I think that puts me at about halfway.
I was close with 35.
Yeah, we're a decade out. That's okay, Kay. I like, as I say, I like you a lot for that. And I empathise with what you were saying when you were, on breakfast TV. You had 9, 7, 5, something like that, young kids. Well, my kids now are 10, 8, 4. I've just been with my sister-in-law and her husband in the UK. Their kids are 4 and 2. Thank God that my kids are older. I feel like I'm entering this better place. My relationship with Natalie is better because I think partly, we just haven't got, whether it's career and the stress of that and these young kids.
Yeah.
Your second half can be your best half. And I think actually people would say the studies and the surveys that it generally is. Would you agree with that?
I so do.
Yeah.
Stoked to be 50.
You've worked out who you are, what you're about.
Yeah. And I'm enjoying it. I feel like I know who I am more, and I'm in being more accepting of myself. I'm more accepting of other people, and in being more responsible for myself and my own health. I'm allowing other people to be more responsible for themselves. Like, it's not either or, it's yes and. When I am responsible for myself, I can support somebody else, but I don't take responsibility for shit doesn't belong to me. I'm not trying to fix anybody. And even with the podcast, I'm not the answer. Each of us has the answer inside of us, but sometimes we need somebody to hold a hand and pull us forward, or to cheerlead from the sideline, or to send us a care package, or whatever it is.
In your second half, you are a chaplain.
I know.
What, when, why, how? Run me through this.
Well, sometimes I drive home post-breakfast and I think, Hamish is going to ask me what I've done today. And all I've done is listen to people. How am I going to explain that? And it turns out it's called chaplain. No, it turns out that in basically really digging people and discovering the power of listening to people, and in kind of coming home to the fact that I love that, during COVID, when I was kind of caring for a group of people who worked in the media, I was like, there's another whole cohort. Like, it's basically, surely everybody needs pastoral care, or could, if they want it, benefit from pastoral care. So it was kind of this realisation that friends and family are fantastic if you need to offload or decant or, undo something. And experts are brilliant if you've got a really significant thing you need to work through. And there are lots of levels of expert. But in between your expert, from like right at the end of the continuum, in the middle there, I think, sits pastoral care, which is somebody who is neither belongs to the corporation that you work for, or your community, or is somebody who you necessarily have to pay for to see. Pastoral care is somebody who will be present with you and hold space. And
you have a faith. You're clearly a Christian.
Yeah.
I think as Kermit the Frog said, it's not easy being green, it's not easy being a Christian. Would you, and there we go again in Western society we live in, would you go along with that?
No, I wouldn't go along with it, because I wouldn't do life without my faith. I love my faith. I love it. It's joy. It brings wonder and joy and
not
purpose
what I'm asking
to
you.
And so I don't really care if other people are misunderstanding me. Does it make it easy to be a Christian? Maybe no, it doesn't at the moment, because I might be misunderstood. Do I deserve a little bit to be misunderstood? Yep, I probably do. Like, seriously, Christians are humans. And we've done shitty things. And this is too big a topic to unpack right here, right now. But in terms of, like, chaplaincy is for all faiths and none, right? And so prayer exists inside of every single culture in the world. There is something inside of humans that seeks something bigger
than themselves.
And the something bigger is also inside of them, and it's in the whole of nature. So I guess the chaplaincy piece is where you hold space with somebody. It's for people of all faiths and none, like I said. And there's no getting people to the other side or winning them over or convincing them or recruiting them. There is, I will stand or sit or walk with you in this space, in this difficulty. And so, to be honest, I don't care if the church is being misunderstood or Christians are getting a hard time or whatever. Some of it we deserve, some of it we don't. All sorts of people get attacked for all sorts of reasons, or criticised or misunderstood or critiqued. What right do we have to be, understood and loved and appreciated for every good intention that we have?
Now, there are 3 questions I ask every guest, and it's called general knowledge.
Yes.
What single object would you save from your home?
Well, I put my husband, then my kids, and then my dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's objects.
Let's say they're inanimate.
Inanimate.
What sort of dog have you got, by the way?
It's a schnoodle.
Right.
Yeah, he's awesome. Unconditional love. Man, God invented dogs. Nah, just don't worry about it. Just leave
Not
the stuff.
worried,
It's
no
stuff.
possessions.
No, I'd be sad.
Your photos?
No, because it's digital. We've got lots of stuff. I think my husband is so clever. He's probably got a copy somewhere, and if he hasn't, I love some stuff. Like I thought about this. Like, would I grab that painting that I got given for my 50th? I love that painting. It's great.
What's it of?
Elliot Collins. It's a poem on an abstract background.
Right.
Yeah, New Zealand, great New Zealand artist. Yeah, oil.
Right.
Yeah, oil. It's big though. It's too hard to carry out. Nah, I just as long as the dog and the cat are out. Obviously, the kids are out. Yeah.
This is not the question, by the way.
Okay.
This is like a preliminary. Do you drink?
I do. Yeah.
What is the best night out you've ever had? I'm not necessarily linking those two things.
You definitely linked them.
It could be.
You linked them.
You could have been on green tea.
No, but you linked them. Just so you know.
Jesus turned the water into wine.
He so did. Good wine too. Lots of good wine. Christians, my father says, have been trying to turn it back into water ever since. I think I'm not good at favourites. It's just part of my personality. I like more of everything.
Out then.
So
it was just average and nothing special happened.
My 50th birthday party.
Great.
Yeah,
but that wasn't a night. That was like you told me. It was a rolling mall of events and loveliness and aroha.
It bloody was. But on the night, we set a table for 26. There were flowers and colour. There were festoon lights. There wasn't a breath of wind. There was food galore. There was fillet of beef and salsa verde. My brother and a friend drank a whole bottle of whiskey. I'd asked my brother to bring a bottle of whiskey. I never got offered a single. I called him. I said, Justin, you didn't give me a drink of whiskey. I like drinking a little bit of fire every now and then. But we danced, we ate, we talked. It was awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I do like a good dance.
Yeah, no, I've done a bit. It was my father-in-law's 80th, actually, very recently, and it was some very bad dancing. What's the best advice given to you, and who gave it to you?
Again, this is useless because there's so much good advice in life, isn't there? What springs to mind is to give and receive repair attempts. And it was by my counsellor at the time, Pauline Skeets. And in life there is lots of conflict. There are ideas that I have that I think are good and right, and there are ideas you have that you think are good and right, and they rub up against each other. And we actually don't have to pull each other and our ideas apart, but we can, in the midst of conflict and in the midst of disagreement, post that. Her advice was give and receive repair attempts. So it's where you go, okay, we've both just lost our shiz a little bit, or we've both just become impassioned and held our ground, potentially at the expense of hearing the other person. And so if you can offer a kindness, and if you can swallow your pride and receive a kindness, I think that's very good advice. Stay there, stay in the room. And sometimes, so for example, with Hamish and I, if we have a Barney or
never happens,
a difficult conversation, he'll say something or I'll say something and I'll say, this is a repair attempt. Because you're usually still a bit hit up in your brain, you're still like, stuff you. And I'll be, this is a repair attempt. Or I'll be like, oh, he's making a repair attempt. So actually literally choose. You go back to your thinking brain and you choose to repair. I think that's good advice, don't you?
I like it. I've been told in those circumstances you should accept it, but you don't say it's okay, because it's not always okay what someone's done to you.
No, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to condone
Yeah.
that behaviour, but you can say, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Petra Bagust, thank you so much for coming in. You've been listening to Generally Famous. There are more episodes at stuff.co.nz/generally famous and wherever you get your podcasts. If you follow us on any of the podcast apps, you'll get instant access to the next episode. It's quick and easy to do. Thanks very much to producer Chris Reed. I'm Simon Bridges and this is Generally Famous. It's been great to have you along. Generally Famous is proudly brought to you by Trade Depot. Generally famous for low prices, always.